they keep smuggling thinking into this. Like you shouldn't be smuggling. If you actually believe that everything that we do is completely and totally your brain state, the very next word you utter, the very next so-called thought in your head is just a chemical reaction that was determined way back there. You can't do stuff like that. And this is what I see happening is that a lot of times people arguing that we don't have free will lose the argument with the very first a decision to make an argument, because that is not going to happen under nature. That's going to happen totally only if you have a mind that can think according to rules of logic, free of being constrained by the laws of physics. So physics does not dictate your decisions in your head. It's hopefully logic. No, what physics will do, though, is that if this is true that we have a non-physical mind, then it actually interfaces with our brain in the physical world. It has to interface, like we have to interface with our physical body. So when I talk about myself, I'm not talking about this body sitting in a chair here. I'm talking about, when I say me, I'm talking about what I might refer to as the soul. That's me. That's what defines me. And my mind is part of that, and that's got nothing to do with physics. My body has everything to do with physics. So if I'm going to operate in this physical world, I need some sort of an interface, and that's my brain. In the same way, if you want to use a computer or a cell phone or whatever, your keyboard becomes the way you communicate with your laptop or your screen with your thumbs, the letters on your screen. That's your interface. So the interface is damaged. It'll actually impair your ability to function in the physical world. Let's say you're deprived of oxygen at birth, so your interface is now damaged. Or let's say you get into a car accident with some brain damage and you find, wow, Sheldon sure is different now, even his personality has changed. The personality, what they would call personality, is basically just a function of, it's partly a function of your physical state of being, whatever endorphins, your genetics, and so on and so forth. But your real you, the real personality, that's a lot harder to figure out, because we are very good at kind of putting on a persona in the physical world.
Okay, so this the car accident thinking, or the car accident situation, is something that I thought of when I was watching her videos, because mental illness is something in our family. So I've researched the amygdala, those kind of things when it comes to anxiety. And there was a guy that was in an accident and had a train spike from the train track in his head, damaged his amygdala, totally changed his persona, all of that stuff. When I think of the initial conditions of the universe, can you explain that? Because to me, that should change. That train spike was a change. How would the initial conditions of the universe come into play on that?
Well, the spike flying through the air and embedding itself in his head, that too was determined from the initial conditions of the universe. And so when
how did the initial conditions of the universe set that up?
Well, you actually have to look at every single particle that was expanding in the early universe, its momentum, its velocity, what its properties, and how it's interacting with its surroundings. You have to look at every one of those, and you'll notice, these two will eventually get close enough that they might bind together, or maybe a lot of them will get close enough to start forming maybe a nebula or maybe a star or something. And then you get this long story about how things, because of it's like when you're playing pool. So you have everything nicely organized. You hit that ball, it throws the balls everywhere. And you would say, once the balls stop moving, you could ask the same question. How did those balls get there? Well, it all goes back to the initial conditions of the momentum of your pool cue hitting the ball and slight differences in the orientation. And that's where the ball's. Now, let's say you hit the ball, you break the thing, you break I don't even know what the term is, but that cluster of pool balls, billiard balls or pool balls. And after they all quit bouncing, they wind up in the shape of a smiley face. And there again, you would just have to say, wow, isn't that amazing? You know, it's just the way of the momentum was.
It's completely random. Yeah.
But if you had a lot of events happening like that, let's say in a bigger scale, you have people arising out of all these collisions and starting to make music and write great novels and poems and build things.
Or the balls never stop moving.
The balls are always moving. So if a spike goes into the guy's head, that is a physical intrusion into the brain. It will change the chemistry of your brain in a lot of different ways. There's big changes happening when the spike went in. So whatever happens afterwards could be completely determined if he had no mind. Now, if he has a mind, then he's going to have some difficulties now because he interfaces with the physical world through his brain, but his brain's damaged now. So he's going to be a different person. You're going to see changes in that person. If he's still able to function, you know, if he survives, you're going to see changes. Over time, though, you might see some of his real personality emerge. I know I've read an article on, I think it was a miner who back, I don't know, 100 and some odd years ago got a one of those rods through his head. And there's a lot of actually urban myths surrounding that story, but if you actually read the whole account, over time, you know, he did recover, but he was never completely the same after.